Always remember your armbands when driving. Abracaflippin-dabra! Imagine a vibrant and colourful world filled with cute and terrifying creatures, great towns and cities and swords and magic. Imagine, ma'am, a JRPG. That's exactly what Ni No Kuni is. Ni No Kuni Wrath of the White Witch was developed by Japanese developers Level 5 and was released for the PlayStation 3 in 2013. The game was published, in the West, by Namco Bandai Games, who then became Bandai Namco Games, who then became Bandai Namco Entertainment. They've changed their name more times than I've changed my underwear. I bought Ni No Kuni Wrath of the White Witch Remastered earlier this year and only recently played and finished it. So now I'm going to talk about my thoughts and feelings of this 7-year-old game. Spoiler, I really liked it. But first, I've hidden a secret somewhere in this video. If you're the first person to tell me when and where you saw it in the comments, I'll pin you and put you into the next video. On with the review. The story follows Oliver, who in the beginning tries to build a car with his best friend, and when they go to take it for a test drive, it all goes horribly wrong and he ends up in the river and begins to drown because the dumbass didn't realise that you should always wear your armbands when driving. His mum then pulls him out of the river and saves him, but her cholesterol is clearly too high, so her heart gives out and she dies right there on the spot. Oliver then locks himself in his room because he's super sad, and he cries a lot and a tear falls on a stuffed toy that his mum made him, and then surprise! It comes to life and turns out to be Lord High Lord of the Fairies, named Drippy, and he has a thick Welsh accent. He's also the best character in the game. Drippy then tells Oliver that he can still save his mum if he saves her double, or soulmate, that lives in Drippy's world. So Oliver and Drippy go and hunt for a stick that Oliver could use as a magic wand, and Drippy teaches him the spell Gateway, which can teleport in between his world and Drippy's world, thus kicking off the 45-hour adventure. Of course, there's more to it, and we find that to save Oliver's mum, we need to defeat the Dark Jinn Shadar and fix the broken-hearted, but more on that in a minute. The first thing that anybody will notice when they play this game is the art style. Now, Level 5 collaborated with Studio Ghibli, and Studio Ghibli made all of the 2D animation cutscenes. And although disappointingly, there's not many of them, but the ones that are there, as to be expected from Studio Ghibli, look absolutely amazing. The rest of the cutscenes of the game are all in 3D, and they do a wonderful job of bringing the 2D animation of Studio Ghibli to life in the 3D world. There seems to be a natural transition between the 2D and the 3D with the cel-shaded graphics that they've chosen to go for, which you see a lot in, say, anime style games. And what stands out nicely with these cel-shaded graphics is Oliver's cloak and how it moves when he's running. Of course, with Studio Ghibli designs, you've got creatures that just look astonishingly cute. A lot of the creatures that you see in this game look like they couldn't harm a fly, although that is far from the truth, and it really makes you want them as a pet. And you're in luck, because this game uses a creature capture system for its battle system. Me, personally, I'm not a huge fan of creature capture systems in games. Aside from Pokemon, that's pretty much the only one that I've enjoyed. I find a lot of other games tend to make it more complicated than it really needs to be. Creatures that you fight could be captured and become what's called familiars and be used to fight alongside you. This is done when defeating an enemy in battle, and sometimes a small pink heart will appear over their head, and then you can use Esther. She's got a move called Serenade. Use that before the creature has time to run away, and then they decide, do you know what? You've just beat the ever-living shit out of me, but I've got Stockholm Syndrome and I just want to be with you always. Fight for you and die for you, and that is an unhealthy relationship. That's animal abuse, and I won't stand for it. You can have up to 3 familiars per character in your party, which is plenty. And some familiars are matched better with different characters. They kind of synergize better and will kind of perform better. It's not the worst creature capture system, and it doesn't stop the game being fun at all. I pretty much kept the same team throughout the whole game, and there are a few familiars which are just way OP. Of course, I looked them up ahead of time because, you know, who wants to grind or anything? And with the remastered version for PS4, you get all the DLC familiars. So I went ahead and got Griff, which is a really strong familiar to have for Esther. And I went and caught myself a Dinosaurus, who is extremely overpowered, but very little accuracy. Despite having all these different familiars and some of them being overpowered, I actually used Oliver a lot for the boss battles, and that's mainly because he doesn't run out of stamina and he has a wide range of spells that you can use. And the great thing about spells in this game is that a lot of them are used outside of battle because Oliver is a wizard now. So Gateway, that I mentioned earlier, transport Oliver and the team between Motorville, his hometown, and this magical world. And another nice thing about Gateway, if you're waiting for a specific mob to spawn in the world, just use Gateway twice, you know, go there and back, and then it will just refresh the mob spawn. One downside to this though is that I think some of the spells are given to you way too late in the game. For instance, you don't get the Thunderstorm spell until almost end game. You'd think you'd get your elemental spells first. No. A spell called Take Heart is used for certain people that are just overflowing with certain emotions. And then of course you have Give Heart, which takes those emotions that you've captured and gives them to people known as the Broken Hearted. Broken Hearted is something that's done by Shadar to the people of the world, which kind of makes them lose focus, energy, things like that. So you just need to give them their emotion back by borrowing it from someone that has an abundance of that emotion. Cool little system. Only problem with it is you can't just walk up to someone brimming with emotion or a broken hearted and just use Take or Give Heart. No. You have to go through the dialogue every single time. If you don't quite have the emotion that you need, you run to find someone that does have it, and then you got to run back and go through all the dialogue again. You can't just run up to someone and go Take Heart and take it, which was kind of annoying that you had to keep going through all the dialogue, but it's a small thing. Also, the frame rate of the animation for doing Give or Take Heart seems to be super low. It looks like a mid-2000s Flash animation, but it is an easy way to earn merit stamps. Merit stamps are the rewards for errands or bounty hunts, so the side quests of the game. And it's very much like the coffee stamps you get from ordering your basic bitch brews from insert coffee shop chain here. And the merit stamps go on these cards, which you can trade in, not for free coffee, but for upgrades for your characters. For instance, there's one for earning more experience from battle, faster overworld movement, which is very exciting to actually see an overworld. It's been a long time since I've seen an overworld in a game. You can get better shop prices, a useless jump. It's not used for anything, but it is fun to jump around, and it says so in the description of the ability. And the very final one you get, spoiler, you boost Oliver's HP and MP by 100 points each, unlocking Oliver's full potential. The errands and bounty hunts don't take too long, but I do feel they're kind of uninspired side quests that you see in pretty much all RPGs. They take away the need to grind, but they also feel compulsory in the fact of you just wouldn't be strong enough to do the story if you didn't do them. Me no like the grind. But like all good JRPGs, you pick up party members along the way. It's not the end that matters, it's the friends we made along the way. You can switch between different party members in battle, but to be honest, I didn't feel there was much need to unless, say, Oliver got knocked out for any reason. But what is nice is you have your own little side story for each character when they're introduced to your party. So that's pretty nice. Of course, Drippy, the best character in the game, accompanies you throughout your whole journey, but he's an NPC. You don't get to play as him. However, he does sometimes jump in battle and go like, yeah, guys, restore your MP. I don't even know what accent that was. But Drippy is an apt name, actually, because he drip feeds information to you throughout the game, which is great because a lot of the times JRPGs fall into the issue of having just great walls of text that they just throw at you constantly. So it's nice that Drippy's there to not do that. So he gives you information like as the game goes on. But at the same time, there's a lot of points where he just gives you the same information over and over again, acting like the player has a memory like a sieve. You know, he pretty much acts as though Oliver is stupid and has to tell him the same things over and over. It's like, I know what spell I need to use here, just let me use it. Stop being like, oh, you a bloody idiot, you got the spell in your spell book, innit, man? So that part wasn't fun, being told the same thing over and over. And it happens a few times when you're trying to give heart and take heart. He's like, oh man, you got the spell to take the heart. I need to stop doing accents. Story progression is good. Not amazing, but good. Moving to each new area feels like you're stumbling in the right direction as opposed to being like, this place will take me closer to Shadar. And the game focuses a lot on Shadar. You notice the name of the game is Wrath of the White Witch, but this whole time you're after a dark djinn named Shadar, and after you defeat Shadar, that's when suddenly the characters get to know the White Witch, which is literally like endgame. So you defeat Shadar and then suddenly it's like, oh, this White Witch was behind everything all along. And it feels a bit shoehorned in, that last bit, and it probably was a little bit. I mean, Ni No Kuni was originally made for the Nintendo DS. Featured pretty much an identical story, except it didn't feature the White Witch, and a few characters' names were different. This was only released in Japan, by the way. So yeah, the ending felt a bit rushed. Defeating Shadar was much more satisfying than defeating the White Witch, let's put it that way. It felt a little abrupt. Until you watch the post-credits scene. If you do play this game, make sure you watch through the credits and see the post-credits scene, because it kind of ties it off nicely. Though each area you go to is fun and never overstays its welcome. One of my favourite areas was the Glittering Grotto. Now, I'm not usually a fan of ice areas, but this area was really good because it allowed you to use different spells outside of battle. There's a couple of spells that you'd use in battle called Burden and Fireball, and you use these to destroy the stalactites and stalagmites. Which one's ceiling, which one's floor? I can never remember the two. To access different areas for, say, chests and, well, to progress. And there's also fake walls that you could just walk through. It kind of reminds me of Ice Cavern in Final Fantasy IX. Best game ever made. So a lot of the areas are really fun to be in. However, there's a couple of areas where the area itself doesn't overstay its welcome, but the music sure does. And I find the issue is because a lot of areas share the same music. There isn't like a vast soundtrack to this game. And I'll tell you now, when you spend too much time in Hamlin, that tune gets grating. I mean, the game's soundtrack is largely good, but it had no standout tracks that really hit me, save for maybe the main theme. It's not a bad soundtrack at all. It's a good soundtrack. It's just not memorable, except from when you spend way too much time in Hamlin. Overall, Ni No Kuni Wrath of the White Witch is a wonderful game to sink your teeth into, and unlike many JRPGs, I didn't hit a wall at any point that then became a slog to try and get through. I enjoyed my 45 hours with Oliver, Drippy and the gang, going to all these different locations and seeing a range of different creatures. Studio Ghibli's art style is very recognisable and gives Ni No Kuni a lot of its charm. I recommend this game for fans of old school JRPGs. The battle system is easy enough to pick up, and the creature capture side of things doesn't ruin the entire experience if, like me, that's not usually your sort of thing. I'm very much looking forward to diving into Ni No Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. I've got a few other games to play first, and seeing the quality of life changes that they've implemented and just some more modern game mechanics. Fingers crossed for a different battle system. Have you played Ni No Kuni Wrath of the White Witch? What did you or did you not like about it and why? Let's discuss it down in the comments. Serenade the like button to join your team and subscribe for discussions on all things gaming, past, present and future. Are you a fan of JRPGs like Final Fantasy? Click the card in a second to see why Final Fantasy 16 could break long-standing series traditions, and I'll see you over there. Bye bye.